So let's get started on the puff dough. Before we start, I want to make it very clear in the beginning that when it comes to making puff dough, preparation is key. Preparation is the most important part of kneading the puff dough. So here, I'm going to take one chunk of 85 grams of butter, put it on a plate, and just throw it in the freezer until it is nice and solid, which usually takes about 2 hours at the minimum. Now I have a plate in which I've kept some dry flour. I have another empty plate. I have a very sharp knife that I'll be using, and I have taken another chunk of 85 grams of butter. I will sprinkle some flour on the cutting board. I will also sprinkle some flour on the knife and on the butter. So we'll start by cutting the butter into slices. We want the slice of butter to be about 1/5 of a centimeter thick. It's a rough approximate measure, but basically we need thin slices, and we will start placing these thin slices on the floured plate. We want to layer the plate with one nice thin layer of pieces of butter slices, and then to make the second layer on top, we'll sprinkle some flour on the butter slices and then continue adding more slices of butter on top. Once we're done with slicing the butter, we're just gonna put this plate in the refrigerator for about 10 to 15 minutes to ensure that the butter is nice and cold. In the meanwhile, I'll clear out my workstation because cleanliness and being very meticulous is important while making puff dough. It makes the process easier for us. So let's just clear out the work surface. Right now on my work surface, here I have all the things I'll need. I have an extra large bowl. Ensure that the bowl is way larger than you think you need. And in case if you're living in a place which is really hot or your kitchen is humid, just throw all your tools as well in the fridge. That way it helps you keep the temperature low and cool for a longer period of time. Then I have taken a grater, I have a spatula, I have some spoons, all my ingredients, and then I have a plastic wrap. I have these things ready. Now let's get the ice cold water out as well. So to begin, I'm gonna add 210 grams, that is 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour into the bowl. To that, I will add 1 tablespoon of sugar and 1 teaspoon of salt. Using my silicone spatula, I'll mix these three things properly until the sugar and salt are equally distributed throughout the flour. Then I'll take the frozen chunk of butter that I have, and I will lightly dip the butter in the flour to coat it to have a thin coating of flour on it. This coating of flour helps you ease up the process of grating. So we're also going to add some dry flour on our grater as well. Now we'll start grating the frozen butter. You have to be really careful while grating it because since it is frozen, sometimes your hands get cold and you may cut your hands on the grater. So be really careful with that. If you feel in the middle of the process the butter has started to stick to your hands, feel free to coat the chunk of frozen butter in dry flour again. Once you're done grating the butter, gently start tossing the butter and flour. You don't want to press down on the butter, you don't want to apply any pressure. You just gently want to toss the flour and butter until all the strands of butter are evenly coated with flour, dry flour. We will continue this process of tossing until we're satisfied and feel like it is evenly coated and distributed throughout the flour. Now we'll take out our butter slices. We'll be repeating the same thing with the butter slices as well. We will take out all the slices of butter and start putting them in the flour. We don't want to apply any pressure or press down on these slices. We just want to place these slices, ensure that they're not stuck to each other. No two slices are stuck to each other. Just put all the slices into the flour and then start tossing them again. You don't want to press down, you don't want to apply any pressure, you just want to toss them until all the slices of butter are nicely covered in the flour. Make sure that as you go, you also keep your station clean, your workspace clean. That ensures that you can work quicker with stuff and make sure things are very, very cool. So now that the slices of butter are all evenly coated with some dry flour, we're gonna start adding the ice cold water. Don't add all the ice cold water at once. We have 60 ml of ice cold water over here and we're gonna add it in increments. When you start adding the water, again, this is not a regular dough, so you don't have to knead it. All you have to do is take your hand and bunch the dough. You bunch it and leave it. You bunch it and leave it. You don't want to knead it like a dough. Continue to add the water, the rest of the water, slowly, and continue the bunching and kneading process. You don't want to apply pressure again, just bunch it and knead. Bunch it and leave it. Bunch it and leave it. Then, if you feel that the flour has started looking like a dough and it has started to look a little hydrated, it's perfect. Once you're done adding all the water, you will realize that it has started to resemble a dough now. In case you feel it still looks too dry, you can add another 15 to 20 ml of water, ice cold water to it. But there are lesser chances that you'll need more water. Once you see that the dough has started to come together, even if it has a few dry spots, that's all right. We'll stop kneading the flour over there. We'll stop kneading the dough over there. We don't want to go overboard because the longer we take to knead or handle the dough, the butter is going to start melting and we don't want the butter to melt. So once we feel that it's come together with some dry bits here and there, we'll stop kneading and keep the bowl aside. Just rub off the flour excess dough from your hands and just put it aside. Now we're going to clear out the workspace and take the plastic wrap. We're going to lay down one layer of plastic wrap. Then we'll cut out another piece of plastic wrap and keep the second piece aside for now. On the surface of the first piece of plastic wrap, we'll empty out all of our dough. We'll just empty out all the dough, even the dry bits, and gently press it down. You don't want it to become one piece, we'll do that later, but just gently press down the dry bits onto the dough. Then place the second piece of plastic wrap on top of the dough and wrap it up from all sides. Make sure it is sealed from all four sides. So now we have a packet of dough. To this packet of dough, we will gently press it down and try to make the corners sharp so that it starts to resemble a rectangle. It does not have to be a perfect rectangle, it should just resemble a rectangle. And now, make sure that you keep this dough on a flat surface to chill for 60 minutes in the refrigerator. So now that it's been 60 minutes, I've cleared out my workspace and here I have the dough. I've taken a bench knife I will use to collect the dough. I've again kept a plate of dry flour and I've taken a dowel pin. You can either use a dowel pin or a rolling pin, whichever is available to you. I will unwrap the dough from the plastic wrap and then before I take it out of the plastic wrap, I will sprinkle some dry flour on my workspace. On my station, I will sprinkle the flour. A tip, whenever you're sprinkling flour, try not to sprinkle it from the top. When you sprinkle it from the side and you kind of throw it from the side, you will notice that throwing from the side creates a nice and thin layer of dry flour that is evenly distributed on your whole work surface. So now we're going to take that piece of dough and place it on the flat surface. I will also sprinkle some flour on top. Make sure the top of your dough is also well sprinkled with dry flour. And the key to making a good puff dough is that before you start rolling it, you always hit it with your dowel pin or your rolling pin. Start beating your dough, like literally start hitting on your dough with the rolling pin. You will notice that since the dough is hard as it's been in the fridge for so long, the butter has kind of frozen up, and if we will roll it right now, nothing will happen to it. So we start by hitting the dough. We will hit the dough for about 30 to 40 times, and then we'll start rolling it. Start rolling your dough, and right now our aim is to roll out the dough into a rectangle that is of 1:3 ratio. Now, 1:3 is a rough ratio that we have. We don't have a specific measurement in mind, but we will try and keep it to a 1:3 ratio. And while we're going to roll it, we will also use our bench knife to collect the dough and give it a neat rectangular shape. This way, it helps us control that the dough does not get all floppy and turn into a weird shape. Our aim is to create a rectangle that is of 1:3 ratio. And then we'll continue rolling. We're gonna use our rolling pin, and when you roll it, you don't want to make small rolls, you want to make bigger, longer rolls. And throughout the process, we will continue to use our bench knife to collect the dough. This way, we're able to make sure that the shape stays like a rectangle, or at least resembles a rectangle. And we also have to make sure that the dough does not stick to the work surface, so we will continue to lift the dough and relax the dough. If you feel at any point that the dough is starting to stick to your work surface, just gently sprinkle some more dry flour over there. Again, we will continue to roll it till it is about half a centimeter thick. But we will also use our bench knife to continue to collect it. That way, we can continue to try to make a rectangle out of it. Right now, the edges look really rough and rounded and weird, but that's alright. Once we reach the desired thickness of about half a centimeter, we're gonna use our bench knife and make marks on it, dividing it into 3 equal pieces. You just want to make marks. You don't want to cut into the dough, you just want to make marks. And then we will take the outer side and fold it towards the center. Similarly, we'll use the other outer side that we've marked and fold it. We're folding it like we would fold a letter. And now we've made our first fold. This will count as our first fold of creating layers. Now, with the open side, which is also known as the lip of the dough, we will make sure that is on our right hand side. And we will stick to this right hand side throughout the process. We'll sprinkle some more dry flour on top. And now we will collect it. Again, we want to make sure that it resembles a rectangle. So, as you noticed, the lip is on my right. We have to remember it is on the right. Now, to lock in these layers of dough, or to lock in the layers of the puff dough, we are going to beat it again. You want to beat it about 20 to 30 times. This ensures that the layers kind of stay where they are, and it is these layers that is going to give it the flakiness in the end. Again, I'm going to collect it using a bench knife because I want it resembling a rectangle, and then we will start rolling it. While rolling the dough, you will notice that whenever you roll, the edges or the sides start to curve. So, to counter that, we will just roll out on the edges. We will continue to roll this again and try to maintain a 1:3 ratio. We're trying to maintain a 1:3 ratio. We will again roll it until it is half a centimeter thick. We will continue to take the help of our bench knife and collect the edges, trying to keep them neat. So 1:3 is the ratio we're looking for, with the dough being half a centimeter thick. We will also continue to relax the dough throughout the process by gently lifting it. And at any point, if you feel it is sticking, you will just sprinkle some more dry flour and continue rolling. I feel that again I've reached the 1:3 ratio and it is about half a centimeter thick. So again, using my bench knife, I will roughly divide it into 3 equal parts and fold in the outer sides on towards the center piece. And again, the open side of the fold, that is also called the lip, I decided to keep it on my right hand side. So I will place it back on my right. See, it has started resembling a rectangle even more now. So this was our second fold. And start beating it again. Again, we're beating it to lock in these layers. These layers will give our puff dough the beautiful flakiness. So I will beat it for about 20 to 30 times and then I will relax the dough, collect it back into a rectangular shape using my bench knife and then continue rolling. I will continue to roll it and relax it. Roll it and relax it, and also ensure that there is plenty dry flour on the surface so that it does not stick. I will continue to roll. This process of relaxing it, rolling it, and ensuring it does not stick has to continue again till it has reached a 1:3 ratio in the shape of a rectangle with being half a centimeter thick. I can always use my bench knife to collect it and keep the edges kind of neat and tidy to ensure that it continues to resemble a rectangle of 1:3 ratio. Once I'm satisfied with the 1:3 ratio rectangle and think it is about half a centimeter thick, I am going to make my third fold. Again, using a bench knife, I will make the markings, dividing it into 3 equal pieces, folding the outer sides of the dough towards the center piece like I would fold a letter. And then again, the open side of the fold, that is the lip, I decided on the right hand side, so I will keep it on my right hand side. So this was my third fold. Now, again, using a bench knife, I will collect it and make it into a neat rectangle. I will sprinkle it with some more dry flour on the surface and on the top and then beat it again to lock in all the layers. I will beat it about 20 to 30 times to ensure that the layers are locked in. Then I will use my bench knife as well to collect the edges and make sure that it resembles a rectangle. Now, once I'm done beating it, I'm gonna take the plastic wrap that I had kept aside. Do not throw it away. We'll continue to reuse it as many times as we can. And now I'm gonna tightly seal it in the plastic wrap and make sure it's sealed from all edges. We don't want any air getting in. We're gonna chill this laminated puff dough for at least 3 to 4 hours or up to 24 hours. I usually like to keep it around 6 to 8 hours, but you have to do it for at least 3 to 4 hours to ensure that the layers get perfectly set where they are and we get a nice puff dough with flaky layers. Let's move on to the next lesson where we use this puff dough.